everybody. Welcome to Takeoff with John Clark. And what a great time of the year. The Eagles are the number 2 seed going into the playoffs. Let's welcome in the Hall of Famer, Ray Didinger. It is good to see you again. What a great time in our city, huh?
A great time. It really is a great time because it's been a pretty memorable season to this point, and it may only get more memorable. It may only get more memorable from here.
That is what everybody is hoping in the city. So, Ray, I'll just ask you right away what everybody's asking everywhere. I just came in here to the NBC Sports Philadelphia offices. Our security guard said, what are you going to do? Do you play or rest? So, Saquon Barkley going for the rushing record. What would you do?
I would sit him. I would sit him and Hurts and Brown and Smith, maybe the whole offensive line. I would give him the week off. I really would. Jalen Carter, probably. Slay, probably. I would sit a whole bunch of guys this week. And I know that flies in the face of what most people think. It probably upsets the real red-blooded Eagle fan who comes out of the concrete Charlie Bednarik mold. You not only play every game, but you play 60 minutes every week, all of that stuff. I get it. But I just think that, and I think Saquon Barkley gets it too. He kind of said this on Sunday, that the record is really special, and the record is great, but he didn't come to Philadelphia with the idea of breaking Eric Dickerson's record. I mean, he came here with the idea that he wanted to win, and he wanted to win big. And if that's the case, and I think it is, then you got to do what's going to prepare you the best to make a big-time run at the Super Bowl. And I think a week's rest is more important.
Now, Jordan Mailata came out after the win, and he said he is going to push for, or he wants to go for the record. Mm-hmm. They probably all do. And I'm sure Saquon would like to as well, but he said it's up to Nick Sirianni. Most coaches like Andy Reid, Nick Sirianni, they have rested guys when they can't improve their seating or positioning. But you said it. This is pretty special, and you're a Philadelphia sports historian. And I was looking up, records by Philadelphia athletes. Wilt Chamberlain has the most points in an NBA season. You mentioned to me Reggie Leach with the Flyers, most goals in a playoff. But Ray, would this most rushing yards ever in an NFL season be up there with like most home runs in a season? Because to me, during my lifetime, that's the biggest record I've seen. Where would you rank having the most rushing yards ever in an NFL season amongst single season awards?
It's big, but the Super Bowl is bigger. The championship is bigger. And I would say this, John, about the record. And I mean, I don't mean to diminish it because it's a tremendous accomplishment. It is. But if you dial it back to week 6 of the season or whatever, before Saquon Barkley got on his run and we began trying to figure out if he could make the record or what kind of pace he was on or any of that kind of stuff. Early in the season, before the record became a thing, if you had stopped anybody on the street, 10 people, 20 people, whatever, and said to them, who has the NFL record for most rushing yards in a season? I don't even know. I mean, they would probably, half of them would probably say OJ. Half of them would probably still say OJ. And the other half would probably say Barry Sanders. Maybe 1 in 50 would say Eric Dickerson. So is it a big record? Is it a milestone? Absolutely. But it's not that. It's not Hank Aaron's home runs. It's not Babe Ruth's 60. It's not that. I don't know that football has a whole lot of records that compare to those. I think it's big. And I know Saquon Barkley, where he is right now, just 100 short. There's a part of him that would probably like to go get it because he'll probably never be in this position again. But the bigger issue is what's the smart thing to do here for him and for the team if they want to make a real run at a world championship, which I think they have a chance to do. Then I think a week's rest is more important. And, when I watched the game play out on Sunday, the big push that they had to get him to 2,000, I think that was what was on, that was clearly on their minds. That was achievable. That was doable. And they went to get that, to get him over the 2,000. Because there haven't been many guys in the history of the league that did that. But I kind of think in the back of Nick Sirianni's mind, that was kind of what he was shooting for. Let's get to 2,000, but the record, I don't know. My guess is, now maybe I'll be totally wrong, but my guess is the ultimate decision will be to sit him out, and I think that's what I would do too.
Yeah, when you think about it, Jalen Hurts coming off a concussion, I didn't even see him at the link, and I saw no photos of him celebrating the division title with the players, so I don't think he was there. And you don't want to get Jalen Hurts hurt. He's coming off a concussion that was bad enough where he wasn't even close to coming through the protocol. He wasn't even on the practice field to be out there. And then you think about how important Lane Johnson is, Jordan Mailata, and then Landon Dickerson, guys like that. You can't risk them getting hurt. You can't risk Saquon getting hurt. I mean, Saquon has had injuries in his career. He has made it through 16 games completely healthy. So you don't want to risk that. And then, Ray, I also think they have played 12 straight weeks, and you're looking at having to play 3 games to go to the Super Bowl. How difficult is that, playing that stretch of games with the early bye?
I think that's real big, John. I think that is, in my thinking, is a big factor, is that their bye this year came so early, came in week 5. So that means they had been playing without a break for 3 months. And the Eagles play a tough, grind it out, fight it out in the trenches kind of football. And every week is a slugfest. And they've been playing week after week after week after week to get to this point. And now they have no bye. They're going to have to go straight into it. For all we know, they might have to play a Saturday game in that week. So I think that a week off would do all of those guys a lot of good. Saquon Barkley has 378 touches this year. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, and you look at how many snaps. Lane Johnson's played 900 snaps. Cam Jurgens has played 1,000 snaps. I mean, these guys have played a lot of tough football without a break now since early October. I think if you want to really have your team ready to go in the postseason, and that's where we are right now, then I think the smart thing to do is let them rest this week and get them ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and to your point, 345 carries for Saquon is a career high. It's the first time he's ever over 300. And if you add in, because the Giants have never been on the possible run that the Eagles could go on here, if you add in 4 more games of 25 carries, you're talking about 440 carries. Now, Ray, the interesting point is the offensive lineman went into Nick Sirianni's office during the bye week, knocked on the door and said, we got to run the ball with Saquon. Right. What if you have guys like Jordan Mailata, who is pretty open? He wants to go for the record. What if you have the line saying, Nick, we got to go for the record? Do you think Nick can be influenced by his players?
He'll hear them out. But, I mean, I read all the quotes in the paper today. I wasn't there, but I read all the quotes in the paper today. And Jordan Mailata was quoted saying exactly what you said. Mailata wants to go for it. Good for him. Lane Johnson was not. Lane Johnson said, maybe it's better to be safe than sorry. So it's not unanimous among the offensive linemen that they all want to play this game. Whereas the conversation they had with the coach back after week 4, when they all went in, they were unanimous. Look, if we're going to get the season back on track, we got to start running the football, and we got to start giving the ball to Saquon because he's our best option. They were all in agreement on that. I don't think they're all in agreement on this. And ultimately, it is the coach's decision. And Sirianni was very circumspect about it yesterday, as you would expect. It was kind of like a we'll see. But my thinking is that he already knows what he wants to do, and that's sit Barkley and sit most of his regulars and get them that rest before they go to the playoffs. Because you're right. I mean, once you go to the playoffs, there's no question Barkley's going to have 30 touches a game in each one of those games. And that's 4 more. You're talking about all those 500 touches now for a season. Get him the week's rest. Get him as good as it can possibly be. And then let's go into the playoffs and see how far this team can go. Because they have a chance now as the number 2 seed with at least 1, maybe 2 home games here, that they can make a real run at this thing.
And we talked about having played 12 straight weeks, but is the number one thing health and that you just can't risk? Like, what happens if somebody did get hurt in an unfortunate incident? Is that the number one absolute thing? You just can't risk somebody getting hurt?
Sure. And it could happen on any play. And it could happen. Barkley has had injury issues in the past. And if you were to play him in this game, and he would, and it could be something freaky. It could be one of his offensive linemen get blocked back into him and roll up the back of his leg. I mean, anything can happen on a football field. It's just not a risk. You judge everything risk and reward. And there's a case where, as great as the record is, I don't think the risk justifies the reward. And plus, look who you're playing. You're playing the Giants. The Giants have nothing left to play for right now. But I guarantee you, they will come into this game. If Barkley's playing, and they know he's going for the record, the Giants are going to come out playing an 11-man line. I mean, they're going to have only one thing on their mind, and they're going to be selling out on Barkley on every play. Because the last thing I want for the end of this terrible season for them is for Saquon Barkley to set the all-time rushing record against them. I mean, so you're going to be going against a bad defense, but a bad defense with great motivation. And if you're the Eagles, I don't think that's a risk worth taking.
You're right. Can you imagine like a picture of a stiff arm or running over a Giants player because the Eagles got him from the Giants? I mean, that would live in infamy and be all over everything, the tabloids in New York. Ray, it's interesting because I remember having you on the podcast 2 years ago when the Eagles were going into the playoffs and went to the Super Bowl. This will be, I think, the fourth time that they have had a 13-win season or better, and they've gone to the Super Bowl each other time. And I remember 2 years ago you said you could make an argument that 2022 is the best regular season in Eagles history. Well, they were 14-3, I believe. Now the Eagles have a chance to be 14-3 again. Nick Sirianni's the only Eagles coach to have multiple 13-win seasons. Could you put this regular season up there with others?
If they complete the journey, sure. I mean, if they beat the Giants, which I think that they will do regardless of who they play, and then go into the playoffs and run the table and win the whole thing, it'd be hard to put another team ahead of them. I mean, I still think, to me, the greatest team in Eagles history is the 49 team, the 1949 team, which is way before anybody's time, even mine. But they were 11-1 and just rolled through the NFL. I mean, the point differential was just ridiculous. They were so dominant that year. And then went to the championship game, won the championship game by shutout for the second straight year. And Steve Van Buren, who was their big running back, was their version of Saquon Barkley, led the league in rushing again, MVP, all that stuff. So I would still say, to this point, if you were to ask me today, what's the greatest team in Eagles history, I would still argue the 1949 team. But if this team does go on to the playoffs and then goes on and wins a Super Bowl, it'd be hard to argue against it because they have accomplished a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, and when you look at the matchups, and I got to tell you, I think it's time the NFL gets rid of the division winner getting a home playoff game. Do you agree? I mean, because you're going to have, once again, you're going to have Detroit or Minnesota with one of the best records in the NFL going on the road to a division winner who has far less of a record.
I agree with you. I mean, if I were to have a vote in that, which I don't, but if I were, yeah, I would reseed everything. I just base it on your best record. But the league's argument against that has always been that winning your division should count for something. Even if it's a bad division, that winning that division should count for something. So that gets you a spot over another team that was in another division, maybe has a better record. I'm not sure I agree with that. And why should you benefit by having been in a bad division and not being able to put up a better record? I mean, at the end of a season, at the end of a 17-game season, you have a pretty good idea of who the best teams are. They have earned what they have. I think just reseed them and go that way. But the subject has been brought up a number of times, and the competition committee, the owners, and all, and they like the format the way it is, and I don't see a change in anytime soon.
So that leads me to my next question, because the Eagles right now would face the Green Bay Packers. And man, Ray, you look at the Packers season and they only have 5 losses. 4 of them are to the Lions and the Vikings, two of the best teams in the NFL, and then the first one to the Eagles. So, man, they are battle tested. They have played the best. They lost those games, but how difficult a matchup do you think? Because, of course, you wouldn't have the Rams or Bucks coming here because the division winners get the home playoff games. How tough of a matchup would the Packers be? Is that one of the tougher matchups that a wild card team would have?
They wouldn't be easy, but I mean, you sort of laid it out there. I mean, the fact is their record is really good, but their record against the top teams, not so good. I mean, they haven't beaten the Vikes, they haven't beaten the Lions, and they lost to the Eagles. They're 0-5 against the three best teams they played. So there's a suspicion there that maybe they're not quite as good as their record would suggest, but they're dangerous. I mean, their defense, they're a big play kind of defense. They get pressure on the quarterback. Jordan Love is a little bit of a hot and cold kind of quarterback, but when he's on his game, he's tough. And Jacobs is a really good, hard-nosed running back. I mean, they're not easy by any means, and they would be a challenge. And if they got to come here, I mean, playing in Lambeau Field, coming to Philadelphia here, if it's cold, if it's windy, if it's snowy, whatever, that doesn't bother those guys. You know, bringing teams from the South, sometimes you think you got a weather advantage here. Bringing dome teams here, sometimes late in the year, you think you got an advantage here. You bring a team in from Green Bay, they can deal with the elements. But I think in terms of just the personnel, the Eagles are a better team. I'd say Green Bay is a dangerous opponent, but I like the Eagles in that matchup.
And when you look at the Eagles and what they did this year, to me, for a little while, I had, okay, the Packers was one of their best wins. But would you agree, like when you say the Eagles' signature wins, would you say the win over the Ravens, the way Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have played against everybody else, is their signature win? Like what other wins do you think are the most impressive of the Eagles season?
Ravens' win was very impressive, I thought. I mean, one of the most amazing stats in the league this year was Lamar Jackson's record against the NFC.
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson, his career against the NFC teams was 27-1. He just torched NFC teams. Well, he didn't torch the Eagles, and I still think the Ravens are a very dangerous team. I think they're really tough. They're going to be tough for whoever they face in that other bracket. I know everybody's sort of focusing on the Chiefs, as they should, but I look at that Ravens team as being a team that's been through it before, veteran team, and Henry has given them an element they didn't have before, and Lamar Jackson has had. I don't think he's going to win the MVP again because they gave it to him last year, and I think it's going to go to Josh Allen. But if you look at this year and what Lamar Jackson did, I mean, he could be every bit the MVP this year too. I mean, he is that good. So, of all the Eagles' wins this year, yeah, that one sort of stands out because I think we all went into that game thinking this is going to be a real test. I mean, you're going up against a real heavyweight here, and let's see how good the Eagles are. And the Eagles beat them soundly. And when you went back and you looked at the film, you saw that. I mean, the Eagles stood up to the challenge against a big, tough, physical team. I mean, the Eagles took it to them, and in the second half, took the game over. That I thought was a very, very impressive performance.
Yeah, and I would say the win over the Steelers, based on the Steelers' record, was not as impressive as it looks now because the Steelers without George Pickens and the way they're playing now, they're on a 3-game losing streak. They don't look as good. So that win over the Packers in the first week, the win over the Bengals, they really kind of held down Joe Burrow, which most teams do not do. You know, the one thing about the Eagles that you see is they haven't faced the Chiefs or the Bills. They haven't faced the Lions or the Vikings. So maybe they haven't faced like the elite. But do you think the Eagles are pretty battle-tested going into these playoffs?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. And I think the balance of the team is one of their great strengths. Even the good teams, you would say, well, they're really strong here, really good here, they really do this well. This other thing, they're not so good here, but they're really good here, and there. With the Eagles, you really can't point to anything and say, this is a problem area. Really can't. I mean, the only thing, if you wanted to make that case, the offense is really good. The defense has been very good. They have a pass rush. They have a really tightly, well-coordinated defense that plays really good on the back end, unlike the team of last year. And they can run the ball better than anybody in the league, obviously. And they have big play weapons in the passing game. So, they pretty much have it all. The only thing you would say would be the slow starts. That has been a characteristic of this team all through the season, because they just start slow. And that, to me, is maybe the one worry going into the postseason, that if they get up against a really hot, explosive team, which Detroit can be, which Buffalo can be, which the Chiefs can be, teams that have a lot of offensive weapons that can start fast, the Eagles' propensity to start slow could put them in a hole in a big game, and that would be a tough place to be. That's the only concern that I would have about them. Otherwise, they're a team that's got a lot going for them right now. Assuming they get Hurts back healthy, assuming they keep Barkley healthy, and the two wide receivers, they're going to be a very dangerous team, especially with home field early in the playoffs, because we know how good this team is at home.
Yeah, so it looks like the Packers coming here, but there is a chance if Washington doesn't go to Dallas and beat the Cowboys that it could be the Commanders coming here, and that would be a third game against the Washington Commanders. Who do you think it would be better for the Eagles to face in the wild card round, the Packers or the Commanders?
That's a good question. Well, the Washington team hasn't been in the playoffs before, and the playoff experience, that's not nothing. That's pretty important. But the Washington team, to me, John, they're dangerous. They are really dangerous. And the thing about them is, look how many games they have won late. Mm-hmm. They're like never out of a game. They're the classic profile of a young, hungry team that hasn't won in a very long time, and is starting to smell it now for the first time. They kind of got a taste of it. And they're not going to be afraid of anything right now, because nobody expects them to be here, and nobody expects them to do much now that they are here. Those kind of teams are dangerous, especially when you have a quarterback as good as Jay Daniels. So I'm probably going to surprise some people by saying this, but if I were the Eagles, I would rather play the Packers. Because this Washington team, they got something special going right now,
and we saw it again.
Would not surprise me if they won. If I don't think they would beat the Eagles if they had to come here, but if they draw another opponent, say the Rams, wouldn't shock me if they won it. I think they're good, and I think this young quarterback is really special.
And you mentioned Jaden Daniels. He's now got 3 wins in the fourth quarter or overtime with not a lot of time left, and is that, you mentioned the slow starts for the Eagles. That's one concern. Is also facing a quarterback like him who can use his legs as well. He's a weapon running for first downs and scrambling. Is that kind of like a little concern as well?
Yeah, I thought that when watching the game that the Eagles lost in Washington, it raised a question in my mind of how much problem would a real, true running quarterback give this defense? Because this defense is very good, but a quarterback that can throw the ball, make big plays with the passing game, but run and extend plays and actually run for big yardage. How would that impact the Eagles defense? How would they play against that guy? Now, they played against Daniels twice this year. And the first time, the Eagles won the game, but Daniels was playing with a rib injury that really limited him. He didn't run very much in that game at all. He ran for like 15 yards or something. They kept him in the pocket and they protected him. The Eagles played him 2 weeks ago. He was healthy, and you saw he ran all over the place. And I think what really happened in the fourth quarter, when you go back and you look at it, is the Eagles defense just got tired. He just gassed them. They just, after chasing him around the whole game, because the Eagles were a little short on defensive linemen in that game. Obviously, BG's out. Sweat left that game early. Davis left that game early. So the defensive linemen, they didn't have much of a rotation. So by the fourth quarter, after chasing him around, those guys were just exhausted. And he took full advantage, and Gardner Johnson had been booted out of the game. So all of a sudden, that deep middle area, which he normally patrols, was open. And the combination of those two teams, those two things, Washington was able to just walk the ball up and down the field that whole fourth quarter. You run that risk again because Daniels is that mobile a player. And I think that guy that can run like that, I mean, he's going to test any defense, even this defense. But that's why, and not that Love is immobile. Love can move too. But if you gave me the choice, and probably most people disagree with me on this, because I think some people still don't fully believe in Washington. But if I had the choice of an opponent, I would sooner play Green Bay.
Very interesting, and it's looking like Green Bay right now with Saquon Barkley and him getting 2,000 rushing yards. That is such an incredible number. In all your years of watching Eagles football, I mean, you had the Reggie White, 1987, 21 sacks in 12 games. You know, you've had some great, great seasons. T.O. when he came to the Eagles. Where would you rank Saquon's season for individual performances? But I love the fact that Saquon's is more so a team accomplishment because of the offensive line and what they do to open the holes for Saquon. But where would Saquon's season rank for you?
Right near the top. If you're talking about a singular achievement by an Eagles player in terms of just being dominant for a season, I think the Reggie season when he had the 21 sacks is still number one. He was, and still is in my mind, the greatest defensive end I've ever seen. I mean, and I've seen Deacon Jones, I've seen the film of Gino Marchetti, certainly seen Bruce Smith, I've seen all those guys, and they're great, every one of them. But Reggie was the best, and he was really at the top of his game that year. I mean, he was unblockable. He just took over whole games. And not to say that Barkley hasn't, but in terms of all-time single season performances by an Eagle, I would still make Reggie's number one. But Barkley's maybe number two. I mean, 11 100-yard games, 255-yard game, and just week after week when you thought, well, he can't top that, he would come out the next week and top that. He's been – I think everybody had great expectations when he came here, given his talent, given the fact that he was such a better team with a better offensive line. I think everybody thought he was going to come down here and be really, really good. I don't know that anybody thought that he was going to come down here and put up 2,000 yards and do the kinds of things, just transform this team the way he has. I think it's been a really special thing. And the best part about it is he's handled it so well.
Yeah.
I mean, he is such a level-headed, fully focused, team-first kind of guy that, you know, we don't normally see in today's sports world. A guy that is that good and that acclaimed and that dominant, and yet always everything he addresses in the context of the team, what the team is doing. One of the reasons why I think he's been adopted and embraced by this city to the degree that he has. And I was walking through town today, and there are a lot of number 26 jerseys, out there. That didn't take long.
Yeah, and after the division clinching win last night, I was interviewing A.J. Brown, and he said it not once but twice. He said, we are so happy for Saquon, and we are so happy to see him do it because he is such a good person and such a good teammate. And he said it several times. I really think, and Malcolm Jenkins said this on my podcast, that he kind of brought a great leadership as well and being a great teammate where no one is upset that Saquon is getting the ball as much as he is, or, you know, because that does take away from them being a passing offense. They are a run-first team with Saquon Barkley, but you see just how happy the teammates really are for him.
They are. He's had that kind of impact, and sometimes you wonder when you have a player of that stature that comes into your team, how will he be accepted? How will he be received? I mean, the talent is great, but there's that element of chemistry, of how well will he fit in. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And and I didn't know him very well, but based on everything I had heard from the people in New York, that he was a great guy and totally a team first kind of guy. And that he'll come in there and he will fit in beautifully. And the guys on the team are going to love him and they're going to love playing with him. And we've certainly seen that to be true. And I do think there's a feeling on the part of the guys on the team that they would love to see him break this record. I think they would really love to see it happen for him because they like him that much. And I'm sure there's a sentiment in that room that let's go get it. Let's go get it for him. And the coach now has to kind of weigh that feeling in the room about everybody. Let's go out and get this for Saquon against what I think is the better judgment of, fellas, I think it'd be smarter if we just sit everybody out, don't take any chances, and really think ahead to the playoffs. You know, I was thinking about this a lot last night when we got to this point with Saquon. Is how important is that record versus the importance of winning a championship? And I remember interviewing O.J. Simpson after his career was over and talking to him about the highlights of his career, what he accomplished in his career. And O.J. said to me, he said, look, the 2,000 yards, the MVP, the Hall of Fame, all that stuff, I would trade it all for a Super Bowl ring. Yeah. And, there was a guy who was the first of the 2,000-yard guys, the guy who put that record where everybody thought was out of sight, first ballot Hall of Famer, landslide winner of MVP. And he said, I would trade it all for a Super Bowl ring. Because he never won a playoff game in his whole career. I mean, he never got close to it. So,
wow.
So I think I keep thinking about that, is the idea that this record is important. But if you're really thinking what Barkley is thinking, maybe he's already thinking what OJ was thinking, that, the record's nice, but the bigger thing is what's down the road. And maybe the best thing for us as a team is to get some rest, stay healthy, and get ourselves ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's such an amazing point because, the other 8 guys who got 2,000 yards, I believe, and you can tell me better, there's only one of them who have actually gone on to win the Super Bowl or even get to the Super Bowl, Terrell Davis, right?
Right, correct.
And so the others really didn't have any type of playoff run.
No. Barry Sanders, I mean, all those guys, Jamal Lewis, Chris Johnson, all of those guys, Dickerson,
Derrick
great
Henry.
players. Great players, but never got to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Terrell Davis is the only one that did, and when he got there, he won it, and he's in the Hall of Fame as a result of that. But that's really what it's about. And I really do think, I'm not suggesting that the record doesn't mean anything to Barkley, because of course it has to. But I really do think his thought right now is, look, I came here with the idea of getting on a good team with a chance to win. And we have a chance to win. And that team accomplishment, as he said, putting the banner up, is maybe bigger than an individual accomplishment. I kind of get the feeling that that's what he's thinking. And if I were the coach, I would say, fellas, take this week off. Let's get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think he said it all about the type of person he is when he could have stuck it to the Giants in his first game back at MetLife, and Nick Sirianni was like, I'm thinking about putting some other guys in, and he said, Let the young guys eat. He had a chance to get the Eagles record in that game, and he let others do it. So I think that said all we need to know about how Saquon really feels about going for something like this.
Yeah, I think that is how he feels. And we don't know. None of us know exactly what Nick's thinking. And none of us know of what's going to be said in the locker room and in the meeting rooms this week if guys like Jordan Mailata gather some of his guys together and they go and make a case for this. Because, listen, if you're an offensive lineman and you're an offensive lineman blocking for a guy that sets that record, that record's yours too.
Yeah.
And OJ made his offensive linemen famous. I mean, they became the electric company. Remember, because they turn on the juice? I mean, all of those guys, and a couple of those guys are in the Hall of Fame now, partly for that. So, I mean, there's definitely some reflected glory to be had by those guys. But my guess is, and it's purely a guess, I mean, nobody's told me anything, but I think the ultimate decision is going to be that Barkley, Hurts, and most of the regulars are going to sit this one out. And if I was the coach, that's what I would do too.
All right. Well, we're going to find out, hopefully in a couple days. Nick Sirianni won't reveal it just yet. And Ray, you are coming back with another Tommy and Me run, an incredible play, Ray, that I mean, I saw it in Philly. It's magnificent. So where can we see Tommy and Me again for another run?
Yeah, it's this time it is going to be at the People's Light Theater in Malvern, which is a great theater out in Malvern. And this will be the 9th different theater that we've played Tommy and Me, and the 12th different production of it, dating all the way back to 2016. But this one, we open January 7th, and tickets are selling so well that the theater has already extended the run. We are now going to go all the way through February the 1st. And wow. Performances every day except Monday, matinees on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm really looking forward to it. I am really looking forward to doing Tommy and Me again because the reception that we've received and the way people have continued to support this play over going almost 10 years now is just remarkable. It's just remarkable. And it really says something about the fact that a whole lot of the people that come out to see this play are too young to remember Tommy McDonald. They're too young to remember the 1960 championship game against the Packers. They don't remember all that stuff, but they didn't experience it, but they've heard about it from their grandfathers and their fathers, and they understand that it's a really important chapter of Eagles history. And as Eagles fans, they want to be part of it. And Tommy and Me gives them that opportunity. So I hope folks come out, and I would urge you, if you are interested, start ordering your tickets now because they've been going pretty fast, but we have extended it through February 1st, so you will have an opportunity.
Well, that is great. We're hoping that the Eagles season is extended through February 1st as well as Tommy and Me. And, you know, it's interesting because I was thinking about your relationship with Tommy, and then I saw how Kenny Pickett went to the games as a kid at the Link with his dad up in the third level. And it's about the relationships with Eagles football, and that's what brings everybody together in our city. And your play does such a great job of expressing that and showing how the relationships are really the fabric of the community we all feel with Eagles football. So it's awesome. And I recommend people going out there and seeing it if you haven't caught it yet.
I hope that they do. And people always ask, is it suitable for kids? Because you kind of have to ask that about theater today. And yes. In fact, I would urge you to bring your kids because really, I mean, you've seen it, John. It's really a story about a little boy and his football hero and how the two of them meet over an autograph. And that begins a 40-year friendship that winds up taking them both to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's a great story. People have been supporting it for years. The McDonald family come back and come and see it every year. It's really a wonderful thing, and I'm really proud of it, and I hope that people come out to People's Light in Malvern next month and share it with us.
And I highly recommend it. Ray, I can't wait to see Tommy and Me again, and maybe it'll be extended again and again and again like the Eagles season here. So hopefully a good January for you and the Eagles and a good February as well.
I certainly hope so, John. Always a pleasure being with you, and I think we're in for a very exciting month.
This is going to be fun, Ray. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, John.
Flagrant.